Hello, everyone. It's so great to have you here today. So, let's start with something simple and maybe a little uncomfortable. Think about yesterday. How many hours did you work? Now, I want you to think about how many of those hours were actually meaningful. Not the email time, not the reacting time, not managing other people's emergency time. I mean the kind of work that moves something important forward. So most high achievers see a big gap between those two numbers, how many hours you worked and how much was really productive. And it's not because you're unfocused. It's not because you lost your edge. And it's definitely not because you lack discipline. Here's the real reason. You are trying to do your highest level thinking in an environment that constantly interrupts your attention. And those interruptions create a very specific kind of exhaustion, the kind where you're busy all day, but not actually proud of all the work that you accomplished at the end of it. So, I'm Jen Fox, co founder of N Fox High Performance Coaching. And today I want to walk you through something that changed everything for me and for so many of the high achievers that we coach. Your environment is shaping your productivity more than your effort is. And once you understand that, work becomes easier. You think more clearly, you finish the right things, and at the end of the day, you're actually satisfied. So I'd like you to write this down. Environment before effort. Because this one shift will save you hours every week. So before we go any further, let's do a quick exercise together. Find your phone. So mine is off, but find your phone and move it out of reach. If you can put it in another room, fantastic. But if not, turn it face down. Now I'd love you to just notice what's happening in your body for a moment. Are you feeling that tiny tug, that little pull, that urge to check, the urge to see who needs you right now? So that's not weakness and not the lack of discipline. It's conditioning. Your brain has been trained to expect interruption constantly, and it responds before you even realize it. So today we're going to start breaking that pattern. And it's not going to be by working harder, but by creating conditions that make focus feel natural again. So most people think that that focus or flow is about willpower. If I could just be more motivated, if I could just get myself in the right mindset, or even I'll try harder tomorrow. But we know the science is clear. Focus is not about trying harder, it's about removing friction. And we know that environment creates friction. So when your environment supports your thinking, your brain engages faster. You go deeper, quicker, and you stay in that flow longer. And your work quality rises dramatically. And when your environment isn't supporting you, even brilliant, capable people feel scattered. So I want to share with you something that my coach always reminds me, and that is common knowledge isn't always common practice. And today, I want to help you turn what you already know about focus into something that you consistently practice. So I have to tell you, I learned the impact of environment the hard way. So, when I was working in wealth management, typical office environment, sometimes it was in an office, sometimes it was an open environment. But what I started to realize is that anytime I needed to do real strategic work, actual deep thinking, I had to leave my office completely. And not just my office, the building. So it wasn't just closing the door, it wasn't putting up a do not disturb sign. I literally had to disappear. I would block an entire day on my calendar, grab my laptop and whatever files I needed, and go somewhere no one could find me. Because I knew that if people knew where I was, it was over. It would be, hey, can I bug you for a second? I've got one quick question. This will only take a second. That would start to happen in my day. And then my whole day of strategic thinking, poof, derailed, completely went up in smoke. And all the time I assumed, well, I found the way to really work effectively, and this is just how I work. So let's fast forward when Dave and I launched Ann Fox. So before we launched and started everything, I created this beautiful Pinterest-worthy workspace in our home. It was bright, inviting. I happen to think pretty stylish. I would say it looked like a place where great ideas should happen. But there was one problem. It didn't have a door. So every time our dogs walk through, and our dogs are busy little dogs, they walk through back and forth with their toenails clicking on the floor, or the front door opened, or Dave would pass by, even the times that he was actually quiet, my attention would follow the movement. It was just like, what is that? And as soon as my brain would say, oh, something's happening, whatever thought I was holding, gone. So I would purposefully sit down for a 2 hour focus work block and walk away with maybe 20 minutes of actual output. And like a lot of high achievers, I started blaming myself. And then I found the research from Dr. Gloria Mark at UC Irvine. So she did a lot of research on switching costs. And what she discovered is that even after a tiny interruption, a tiny one, just a little, it takes us on average about 23 minutes to re engage the original work. Now, if you're sitting there thinking of like, oh, well, I come back to my work right away. Well, think if you get the ping from an email and that pulls you away. And it's like, oh, I'll just take a minute and reply to that email. And I've been on conference calls where people say, give me a sec, I need to reply to the email. Well, by the time you come back to the task that you were on, you may have said, oh, that email, now I need to call somebody. I have to write this down. I have to do something else. That just triggered something. And so that whole journey that one little email may have taken you on average, that's about 23 minutes for you to re engage in the original work with the same level of focus. So when I saw that research, suddenly the last 20 years made sense. Nothing was wrong with me. It's just that my environment wasn't designed for the deep thinking, and my environment wasn't designed for my brain the way I needed to channel that deep thinking. So Dave and I made one small strategic shift. We switched rooms. So Dave thrives on movement and energy around him. So, and I will tell you, I can work just about anywhere, coffee shop, dining table, plan, you name it, I can work there. But when I'm doing that high level, deep thinking where I need that incredible focus and flow, I need fewer inputs. So Dave took the big, bright, open space And I moved into what I now lovingly call my tiny office. So it's small, it's simple, it's warm, it has a door. And that door isn't about shutting the world out, it's about signaling to my brain, this is focus time. And so when I close the door on my tiny office, I find that that's the cue that, hey, we're ready to work. And today, I'm giving this Fox Talk in that very tiny office, the place where I wrote this session and where I do my best focused work. But I have to tell you, while that is my story, this just isn't my story. We coach all kinds of folks, senior leaders, founders, executives, successful professionals, people who are incredibly capable and driven. The same people who work 10 to 12 hours a day, but only produce 2 to 3 hours of meaningful output. People who start their mornings with intention and end their days with frustration. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but because they're trying to outperform an environment built for interruption. And so when we fix the environment, so much changes. So usually what we see is after week 1, they complete something they've been avoiding for weeks. By month 1, their thinking becomes sharper and clearer. And then by the time we get to 2 months in, I'm getting the commentary, Jen, I'm actually working fewer hours and I'm finding that the results are better. So most high performers aren't struggling because they lack ability. Hardly. They're struggling because their environment hasn't allowed them to access their best thinking consistently. So this is where I want to introduce to you a framework. So it's 3 steps. It's simple, it's practical, it's transformational. And the 3 words that we're going to refer to are assess, control, and activate. So that's assess, control, and activate. So step 1, assess. So what does your brain actually need? So as we've been sharing, most productivity problems aren't motivation problems. They're misalignment problems. So here's your clarity moment right now. And I'd love for you to write this down. And what I want you to write down is my brain needs 2 things to focus. All right. And that's what your output from this step 1 is going to be. 2 things, not 8, not everything, just your top 2. So how do we figure out what those top 2 things that you need from your environment to be successful? So I want you to ask yourself these questions. When I last did excellent work, what was happening around me? Like really think not just what you were doing and the work you were doing, but what did your environment feel like? Was it quiet or was there sound? Was your phone visible or was it hidden? Were people moving around you or was it very still? And on your computer, how many tabs did you have open? Did you have multiple or just 1 or 2? And then think about your space. Was it bright and open or was it more contained and warm and dimmer? So as you're thinking of those environmental clues, what was happening when I was doing my best work? Think of those top 2 things and have them be your non-negotiables. Everything else becomes preference. So when you're looking to do your focus work, make sure that those 2 environmental conditions are at play. So after you've done the assessment, and sometimes you might need to do that regularly, of think about, okay, the last time I was in the flow, what was my environment like? Once you've done that, then let's move to step 2, control the 3 environments. So, as I said, once you know your top 2 focus needs, the question becomes, How do I design an environment where those needs are easier to meet and harder to lose? So you're not controlling the whole world. That would be impossible, right? You're controlling your corner of it. And we do that through three different types of environment. It's your physical environment, what's around you, it's your digital environment, and it's your internal environment, what's going on in your mind. So when you think about the first one, your physical environment, it's about reducing inputs you don't need. So when you think of your physical space, it's constantly talking to your brain. So just as a quick exercise right now, continue to look at your screen, pay attention, but how many things do you notice, whether it's on your desk or around you? How many things can you see in your peripheral vision, right? Remember, I put my phone down over here. I can see my pink phone case, right? I'm focused, I'm paying attention, but my brain is still processing the fact that my phone is right there. Your brain is always scanning for movement, sound, temperature, visual clutter. And so every extra signal takes cognitive energy. So if I'm focusing on my pink phone over here, that means I'm not as focused here, even though I feel like I'm very focused. So what I'd like to start with is sound, because sound is one of the most powerful levers. And so think about your own brain. So if you're thinking of the environment that was in step one, if you had an environment that had music or white noise or something that we call brown noise, if you had something like that in the background and your in your brain focuses better with sound, give it intentional sound, not noise. So what we did at AmFox is we created a playlist on Spotify, and it's called Fox Tracks Productivity Flow. So we designed this to be that background music that is low variance, it's soothing, and it can help you get into the focus and the flow. And this is for people whose brains really work with music well. So mine does. And I use this playlist myself when I created this Fox Talk. It helped me settle in, stay grounded, and remain in the work longer. So again, on Spotify, it's called Fox Tracks hyphen productivity flow. I'd love you to try it and send me some feedback after you've had a chance to listen to it. So, and it's not just sound, because some people sound does not work, but there's other small physical shifts that you can do that add up in controlling your environment. So if you are in an open environment, because many office spaces right now are going into that open flow, open environment, but if that movement distracts you, angle your chair away from movement if you're in an open space to minimize those peripheral distractions. If you're in a place where the overhead light is harsh, if you can, have a small lamp that will help soften that overhead lighting and is more in your visual plane where you feel warmth as opposed to the harsh glare from the overhead lighting. And this one we hear a lot about. I hear you talking about controlling the temperature, but my office is like at 60 degrees. I always hear from the cold people, and we get it. But if you can't control the room temperature and you're not allowed to have a space heater that a lot of offices don't allow, adjust your layers. Make sure that you know that, hey, it's going to be really cold today, but I'm not going to be moving around because I need to focus. Have that sweatshirt, sweater, blanket, jacket, whatever you need to help you regulate your temperature. And then the other thing, clear the immediate surface area around you. Okay, this is not to be perfect or rearrange or redecorate your desk, but it's to reduce that visual tabs that your brain is continuing to track. So these changes reduce your cognitive load and free up energy for meaningful work. So a to-do, I'd like you in the next 24 hours. However, this is a Friday Fox Talk, so Monday, if that works for you, make one physical adjustment that supports how your brain works. So let's move to the next environment, the digital environment. So this is another way of reducing cognitive threats before they trigger. And the digital environment, candidly, is the biggest thief of deep work. So what I found to be interesting in the research is that your brain doesn't just respond to the interruptions, it responds to the possibility of interruptions. So that's when you get like the notifications on your phone, a preview of an email pops up either on your phone or your computer. You get a ping, you get a blinking icon at the bottom of your screen. So these aren't neutral notifications. Your brain reads each one of these as a tiny decision point. And those decision points drain your working memory. So even if you don't respond, you're still paying a cognitive tax. And so when you're looking at that focus blocks, put your phone away. Turn off all your notifications, close out whatever applications might trigger them. When you're doing your work, because you're likely going to need your computer, try to have only 2 tabs open at any time and use your full screen mode so that what's in front of you is the work that you're working on. Turn off all of the notifications, any of the previews of emails, because this isn't about being rigid, but it's really about respecting your attention. And that digital clutter is that mental noise when really your job is to create that digital stillness so that you can get in the flow and focus. Now, the last environment that I want to talk to you about is the internal environment. And this is where you want to cue your brain with specificity. Your internal environment, your mindset, and intention going into the work. So your brain can't focus if it doesn't know what it's focusing toward. So when people go into their focus blocks, and if you block time, you go into your block time, most people start with a task. But high performers start with an outcome. And before every focus block, ask, what exact outcome will exist 50 minutes from now? And what I want you to think about is that it's not, okay, for the next 50 minutes, I'm going to work on the deck. Or I'm going to I'll just stick with work on the deck. So instead of saying that, instead say, I'm going to complete the recommendation section with 3 final options. Or I'm going to write 800 to 1,000 words of the draft. Or I'm going to build the budget model inputs. See how specific that is? That's a result that will move you forward, but it's so specific that you can say, yep, I did it, and I'm seeing the outcome. So once you've determined what that is, say it out loud. That simple act shifts your brain into a goal-directed state. It's your internal sign that focus is about to begin. So, and what you're doing by saying it out loud, your internal environment is your mental contract. So it's keeping you online. So all of that environment was step 2 of control. Now we move to step 3, activate. And so here you're going to use a 5-minute ritual to cue deep work. And this is the leverage point, activation. And we know that deep work and flow doesn't happen by accident. Your brain shifts into it when it recognizes a pattern of cues. So your ritual isn't about creating this perfect, beautiful scene. It's about sending a fast, consistent signal to your brain that says, we're working now. Got it? We're working now. And this should take 5 minutes or less. And this is what we teach our clients and what I use myself. So here's just a quick 5-minute focus ritual, 6 steps, 5 minutes or less. So step 1, clear your immediate surface. not a full desk makeover, just enough to remove that obvious visual noise. Set your beverage, right? 50 minutes, have your coffee, tea, or water. Sometimes coming into your desk with that cup of coffee, cup of tea, cup of water, it says stability, I'm settling in. If music works for your brain and your focus, cue your music. Let sound become your auditory anchor. And as I mentioned, I use the Foxtracks productivity flow when I write or create content. When I turn that on, it it really signals to me that it's focus time. The fourth one, adjust your lighting. Try to reduce your glare, soften that overhead light. It helps your eyes adjust to the work better and it calms your nervous system. The fifth one, close those extra tabs. You don't need to have every application open on your computer while you're doing your focus work because that's just a temptation for distraction. And those tabs that you have open or applications that you have open are open loops. And closing them closes those open loops in your mind, again, helping with focus. And as I said before, name your outcome. Name it out loud. This is the internal cue. And so what you're going to say is in the next 50 minutes, I am completing what? And be very specific about it. That's it. Under 5 minutes, I was able to talk about it. I'm looking, I don't see my time. I was able to see it in probably 2 minutes or less. And so that's a signal that you're not getting ready. You're telling your brain we're entering deep work now. So now that you've done the cue, you're going to do your 50-minute deep work sprint. And you begin the sprint. One task, full presence, no switching. Your brain will absolutely try to negotiate with you. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human, right? And so when distractions pop in, write them down and come right back to the work. This is a psychological contract with your best thinking. When you finish the 50-minute sprint, do a 10-minute reset because deep work is metabolically demanding and your brain needs a recovery. So during the 10-minute break, move, hydrate, change your posture, step away from the screen. Don't scroll because it burns the dopamine that you need. Movement is what restores it. So your full cycle becomes a ritual, deep work, reset, repeat. You're not forcing yourself to focus, you're creating the conditions where focus honestly becomes the default. So now I want you to imagine this, not as a fantasy, but as a very practical change in how you work. It's early, the window when your brain is naturally at its sharpest in the morning. Instead of letting that time get swallowed by email and other people's priorities, you've already completed 1 or 2 deep work blocks. Your most important project has moved forward. You feel clear, composed, and ahead of your day, not chasing it. And that's what happens when you combine an environment that supports you, a simple 5-minute ritual, and a focused 50-10 structure. You're not doing more, you're doing the right work at the right time in the right state. And so when your environment is misaligned, you feel it. You feel it in your stress, your evenings when you're trying to catch up, your sense of momentum. And it's over time, it's easy to start to wonder if the problem is you. But what we see over and over is this. You are so much more capable than your current environment has been allowing you to access. And when you change the environment and the ritual, your best thinking finally has a place to land. So here's what I would like to leave you with because 30 minutes goes so fast. But high performers don't wait for the world to quiet down. They create the conditions that allow their best work to show up. Assess your top 2 needs. Control your physical, digital, and internal environments. Activate a 5-minute ritual and run a 50-10 deep work block. And remember, what my coach always tells me, common knowledge isn't common practice. So today is your opportunity to start making this a common practice in your life. So if something clicked for you today, if you felt seen, understood, or a little more hopeful about your ability to focus, imagine what becomes possible when you have support applying this consistently. And so, because you're here today, you get a Fox Talk bonus. And that's a free 60-minute strategy session, normally a $497 value for that strategy session. So, it's real coaching, it's not a sales pitch. You bring to our strategy session what matters most right now, whether it's your environment, your work, your goals, and we'll help you build a plan in that 60 minutes that you can start using immediately. And because you invested this time today, this session is completely free. If you're ready to build a system that works with your brain instead of against it, we would be honored to walk this next stretch with you. Let's build something great. Thank you.